So this morning we're thinking about blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. And as we think about mourning, as we think about those who have mourned, those we know, perhaps ourselves, we think about that deep pain. The phrase may apparently make no sense. Blessed are those who mourn. There is no blessing in mourning. There is no blessing in pain. And I just think that's important to be really clear about that. I don't think that's what Jesus meant. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. There's no comfort, there's no blessing in the pain, but there is blessing in the mourning. It may be when we think about mourning, we think about losing a loved one. It may be, to a lesser extent, many other things. It might be a change in life. It may be leaving a way of life behind. It might be changing to a new job. It can be all sorts of things. So as we think about something that we once held dear, that we held to, we cling to, we thought we would never do without. And here we are without it. Blessed are they who mourn, for they will be comforted. And it doesn't appear to make sense. And as we look at the Beatitudes, we're being challenged by these words of Jesus. These phrases he used that jar with us, that leave us uncomfortable. To think, as we thought last week, do I want to be empty-handed before God? Do I want to be poor in spirit? Do I want to mourn? Absolutely not. But in that mourning, there's the blessing of the comfort of God. I think the other thing that's important to say before we move on is that when God created the world, he created the world without sin and death. And right at the end of the Bible, in the book of Revelation, it says that God will create a new heaven and a new earth, and on the new earth where we will live with God, you won't be in heaven on a cloud plucking a harp. We'll be living on the new earth with God. And he says there'll be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. We will live with him forever. And the blessing really is in the comfort that we can receive from God. The blessing when we struggle in life is knowing that God is with us every step of the way. He never leaves us. He never forsakes us. He's with us always. And he's with us in every single thing that we go through. We're never alone. And as we go through those difficult circumstances, we grow, don't we? And as I think about my own life and the struggles I've had, it's in the struggles and in the adversity that we grow the most. We change, we develop, we learn who we are. And as you think about plants and trees, they grow towards the light. And that's the challenge, isn't it? In these moments of depths where we're in pain, when we're struggling, is do we grow towards the light? Do we reach out to Jesus? There's a verse in the Bible which says, my tears have been my food all day long. It's in one of the Psalms. And I love that because there are those moments in life where we just feel such pain, we have no words. And I find that really reassuring that God hears our tears as prayers. Isn't that great? I cannot express how I'm feeling in this moment, but I'm reaching out towards you in desperation, God. And I'm reminded of the disciples in the boat when the storm is all around them. And their prayer to Jesus, they didn't think of it as a prayer because he was just like Jesus in the boat with them. And they say to him, don't you care we're going to drown? And Jesus calms the storm. And that is the world's worst ever prayer. If you ever thought I prayed a prayer and it was bad, you're never going to top that, aren't you? Have you ever said to God, don't you care? Perhaps you have. And isn't it reassuring that we come before a God who answers a prayer that begins with, don't you care about me? And that's reassuring because when we've been at rock bottom, when we're struggling, we know that God is with us always. I find this, and lots of you will be familiar with this, these 5 stages of grief by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And the theory is that when you are bereaved, you go through these stages where there's that initial denial, there's the shock, I can't believe it's happened. And then you kind of get through that, and then you get to anger, and you think, gosh, it has happened, but I'm so angry, it's not fair. Why was it them, and why was it not someone who's evil? And why this, and why that? And then you go to bargaining, and then you're thinking, well, and why wasn't it me? Because they were so much better than I am, and they're so much greater than I am. And then you get to depression. You just get to that moment where you just think, that is it. It's finished, they're gone. And as Christians, we have that hope we'll see them one day. But in that moment when you realise they are no longer here on this earth and you settle in that place, you accept, it's just miserable. miserable. There doesn't feel like there's any blessing in that, does there? But in that process, God is with us. And in that process, we can't always see God because our anger blinds us. Our depression clouds everything. But God sits with us. And I just find that amazing. I don't know about you, but when you're with someone and they're ignoring you, what do? You say, well, go in then. And God is the God who sits with us. And we can be shouting, don't you care? Where are you, God? And he sits with us and he hugs us. And it's an absolutely wonderful thing that our reliance is on God's presence. The Bible says the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. And I find that a really powerful verse because the Bible tells us nothing can separate us from the love of God. God can't be any closer to us than he already is. But having said that, he's especially close to the brokenhearted. Now, those of us who are very rational people are scratching our head and thinking that doesn't make any sense. And you just have to hear that emotionally. God is saying, I want to be especially close to the brokenhearted. And what are we learning this week, last week and this week? We're learning that as people, Christians in Great Britain, I can't speak for the rest of the world, but in Great Britain, with the comforts that we have, we celebrate prosperity. We celebrate wellness. We celebrate peacefulness. We celebrate when everything is going good. And when things go wrong, we can't cope with it. And yet God is the God who says, when you're poor in spirit, when you're mourning, you can open your life up in such a way that you connect with God in a deeper way. Doesn't mean God caused the hurt. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in a God who inflicts pain on people. But God is with us. The blessing is in God's presence. Psalm 23 says, even in the valley of the shadow of death, you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. God is with us in the darkness. And the question is, will we in the darkness go like this? Or will we say, Jesus, light of the world? We recently did a bit of changing rooms in our house. So Tracy decided she needed some office space that was clean and tidy now that she's minister. Because it needs to be clean and tidy, it means she couldn't share it with me. All I'm going to say about that. And so we did some moving around, and David and Destiny moved into our big bedroom, and we've gone into a littler bedroom, and then they had a lounge, which they don't need because now they have the big bedroom. I'm not bitter or sad about it. And they're there and we're there. And so do you know that thing when you wake up and you're in a strange place? And you woke up, and because we just moved everything around, it was about 10 o'clock at night, and we thought we'd just leave it. There was a wardrobe right next to my bed when I got up. And okay, I'm perhaps not the slimmest person in the world, but there wasn't a lot of room to get past. And I got up in the night and I stubbed my toe on that wardrobe. In fact, I banged my head on it twice. And it would have been much easier to flick the light on and think, where is that darned wardrobe? But you can't, can you? Because Tracy was asleep in the bed and I can't put the light on. So I'm struggling in the dark because my head is telling me I can't put the light on for fear of my wife. And there were those moments, we ought to cut that bit off the video actually, that didn't come across well. There are those moments in life where we're living in the darkness and we know that the light of the world can shine into that and bring a perspective, but there's something in our heads that is saying you should be able to cope. And it might be your mother or your mother-in-law, or your grandma or your auntie. Sorry, these are all women. That sounds really terrible. But or your uncle, or but often with me, and I think for many of us, it is often a female figure, the old battle axe, if I can use that language, who has drummed these things into us. You should be able to manage. And whether it is them, or whether it's your brother or your sister or your friend at work or your boss, you should be able to cope. There comes moments where we need to say to those voices in our head, no, that's a lie. I don't accept that I should be able to cope. I should not be able to manage because I need Jesus. I come before him as someone who's poor in spirit. When I'm mourning, I don't say, oh, I'll be all right then. Call the Midwife on the clip we saw earlier in the service. What was the phrase? You just keep living until you feel alive again. You put one foot in front of the other. You just keep going until you get through. And in that comfort, God is with us. I think this promise of God's comfort is so important to a world that avoids pain. Lots of us have seen the movie Inside Out, and here's joy and sadness, and they're characters inside a head. They're pictures of our emotions. And there comes a moment in the movie when joy says to sadness, I'm going to draw a circle over here, and I just want you to stand in it. So you just stay over there, keep all the sadness over there, because we're being happy over here. A world that avoids pain. And I think as churches, I think sometimes we're the worst at this, is my experience. So the Bible uses the language of lament. The Bible will say we lament before God. We pour out our hearts to him. We say to God, this is really bad and we're desperately sad. But often in churches, when things happen to us, we might pray about it and then we get on with our happiness because we can't cope. We don't like the sadness. It has to be something really major to break through. But yet Ecclesiastes 3 verse 4 says there's a time to mourn. And when you mourn, you don't turn it on and off. You're mourning. That's all there is to it. It's not a choice, it's an emotion. It's a way of living. It defines who you are. And as we receive the compassion of God, we're changed. So we're in a world that avoids pain. We're in a fragile world. 2 Corinthians chapter 4 verse 7 to 10. We now have this light shining in our hearts, but we ourselves are like fragile clay jars, or in the picture, a plastic bottle. We're on a budget. Clay jars or plastic bottles containing this great treasure. This makes it clear that our great power is from God and not from ourselves. We're pressed on every side by troubles, but we're not crushed. We're perplexed, but we're not driven to despair. We're hunted down, but never abandoned by God. We get knocked down, but we're not destroyed. Through suffering, our bodies continue to share in the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may be seen in our bodies. And in our fragility, we connect with God in different ways. And there are some Christians that say, if you follow Jesus, you'll always be well and you'll never have any problems. And I want to say, what Bible are you reading? You're not reading 2 Corinthians. Do you not realise that the person who you could say God loved the most was his son, and he sent him to the cross? The definition of God's love for an individual is to say, can you help me save the world by dying on a cross? And so I don't know where this illusion comes from that God protects us from pain. He doesn't. There are times when he miraculously rescues us from stuff, and sometimes he does that, sometimes he doesn't. But there's no promise that he would protect us. We live in a world in pain, and we look at the world around us. And what the world doesn't need from the church is these people saying, oh, follow Jesus and it'll all be okay. Because we in this room know that's not true, don't we? So what good is that going to do? Follow Jesus and it will be okay. And what they don't need is for us to say, oh, pull yourselves together, or for us to give a glib answer. What they need is us to cry with them, to walk in their pain, to think we are the body of Christ. So as Jesus walks through the valley of the shadow of death with us, we do that with people. That's our role, that's our job, that's what we do. We come to our world in pain and we walk with them. We join God in his work. We live as people made in his image by comforting others with the comfort we have received. How do we go about that? Well, Jesus read these words from Isaiah 61. The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives and release from the darkness for the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favour and the day of vengeance for our God, to comfort all those who mourn and provide for those who grieve in Zion, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. They will be called oaks of righteousness, a planting of the Lord for the display of the splendour. We meet with those who are poor in spirit, those who are broken-hearted, those who feel like they're captives, those who feel like they're living in the darkness. And we're with them. And often people say to me, I can't comfort someone because I don't know what to say. And my best advice to you, if you're trying to comfort someone who's just broken, is don't try to say anything, because it'll probably be stupid. I'm not trying to discourage you or say you're stupid, but sometimes we have this moment where that voice inside our head, that kind of pull yourself together voice, kind of shines through that, it'll be all right, chin up, and all that sort of stuff comes out. And instead, we just need to get hold of people. If they're a huggy person, we hug them. If they're not, we sit with them. And we're just saying, I'm here. I'm with you. I'm walking in the valley of death with you. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. So if you in life are feeling like you're at rock bottom, if you're struggling, I hope last week and this week have reminded you and encouraged you that you've not done anything wrong. There's not any matter with you. You're not failing God. In this season of life that you're in, God is with you. And Jesus in the Beatitudes would even say, I think, if this isn't too much of a stretch, you're at an advantage. Because when you're at rock bottom, you become empty-handed. You cry out to God and you ask him to help us. We're going to watch a video clip. I think I've shown it before, but I felt it was worth showing again. And this is the clip of the story behind the hymn, It Is Well With My Soul. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted. He saves those who are crushed in spirit. We're going to take this time, the rest of our service, we're going to sing a few songs. Stand up, sing along, sit down, be quiet. Let's use this space to connect with God, to tell him how we are, to tell him how we're feeling. Perhaps you'll find you might speak to him on behalf of someone else who's struggling. And let's meet with the God who offers us comfort and mercy. Let's trust in him. And as we pour out our hearts, may we receive God's comfort, for he is our refuge. God, would you pour your spirit out on us now as we worship you, as we sing these songs, as we cry out to you. Would you heal us or begin our process of healing as we meet you in this place?